Hi, it's Kylie Coo. Welcome to my studio and welcome to week 42 of creating a positivity deck. And the prompt for this week is seasons. So I very much wanted to have gratitude for, be thankful for the various seasons that we have. And I want to enjoy each season for what it offers and what it provides. And I want to enjoy the beauty of each season. And to me, each season brings different things. And I love each season in different ways and for the different things it does bring. Although I must say that my favourite season is spring. So for me, that would be first among equals. But I'm very much trying this year to make sure that I enjoy every season. And it struck me earlier that when I sat down to do this card, that when I started this positivity deck, it was winter. When I started with the slow down phase, then through spring into the rise phase, then during summer it was create, and now during autumn it's gratitude. And there is still one more state of being to come, albeit shorter. But we've got 10 weeks to go now with this positivity deck, and that took me by surprise as well when I realised. So, a little bit about what I'm doing with the card. I'm just sticking down a piece of watercolour paper so that will act as my base. And what I'm trying to do with my card is to reflect all the seasons. So I'm taking these watercolour paints, they're sort of pearlised, and I'm just going to pick out 4 colours that I think represent the seasons for me. And in a moment you'll see me just point the 4 out that I'm going to use, and I will then kind of put the colours on in quadrants on the card. So, thinking about when I started this year and winter, we had one of the worst winters that we'd had for a long time. Got snowed in fact. But when I think about looking out on that snow, it looked beautiful, especially when the sun came out. And I also realise that every time I see the first snowfall of the season, the first few snowflakes, I almost feel childlike again in that sort of excitement of snow. I love the kind of muffled sounds that winter brings, and all the different colours when you look at the snow and when the light's hitting it, all the different colours that come out. As I've already said, spring is my favourite season. I love the freshness of spring, the kind of new life, the renewal, the green shoots starting to come through, hope and all of that. So spring, very important for me. Then through summer, and this year our summer was one of the hottest and driest that we've had for many years. At times too hot for me, but I know many others enjoyed it. But it was a time for getting on with jobs around the garden that might not have been done if we'd had a cooler, wetter summer. So this summer offered so much and allowed me to get on with so much in the garden. And here we are now in autumn, and the colour is amazing in the garden just now. All the colour of the leaves, they're all starting to come down, the yellows, the golds, the orange. And for me, this is a time of reflection, a time to take stock, a time to plan, in terms of the garden, already planning for next year. And, planning as well for where do I go next year with my YouTube channel, with my art, with my creativity. So, just going back to the card for the second, you'll see that I'm putting in the kind of 4 quadrants. Now, I do decide that I'm working from the top left, the blue for winter, the kind of green for spring, yellow for summer, and the orange for autumn, I decide that the spring and the summer look just a bit too close, so I do a bit more, a bit darker green there, just to let it stand out a bit. And I will go over all the colours just a little bit, just so they come out. And I'm letting them kind of blend into each other at the edges, because to me that also reflects the season. There's not, although meteorologically speaking there may be an actual defining date of when one season turns to the other, or in the calendar sense when one season turns to the other, but in the sense of nature it's not always clear cut. They tend to merge into each other. That's one of the things I like about spring. You know, spring mornings can still be cold, can still be frosty, but then later on in the day you start to feel the warmth in the sun. Autumn, it has to be said, the other day here was really warm. It was a warm autumn day, whereas today it was quite cool. So, really just trying in this card to bring out all the positive feelings that I have about the various seasons. And for me there's something about the cycle of the seasons that brings a kind of order, and yet it's not an order that defines us, that we have to follow. And I suppose by that I'm thinking that the cycle of the seasons in some ways reflects the cycle of life. And part of me was thinking about this earlier, and it troubles me at times sometimes that in terms of the cycle of life that we categorise people in terms of their age, and that to me is just wrong. Obviously we need it for some things like kids going to school and that type of thing, but you know, I was thinking about the people that watch my videos, and you know, looking at the stats, I've got all age groups really, and one of the messages, if there's a message that I wanted to get across, it would be this, that no matter your age, no matter what season you're in, don't feel that you have to be defined by that. So if you're in your spring, you're starting out, don't let people stop your hopes and dreams at this early stage. If you know what you want, if you know what you want to work towards, then do that. But similarly, if you're in late summer, autumn, winter, don't let people define you by that either. If you have hopes and dreams that you've not been able to realise, think about it. Work towards it now. If there's a business you wanted to set up, do it. If you wanted to go out and climb a mountain, do it. You know, okay, these things take a bit of planning, but that's fine. Don't be limited by the season that you're in, because with the season of life brings other things. Spring brings youth. Autumn brings wisdom. So there are many things that we can be grateful for, both in terms of the seasons, but also in the seasons of life. So I'm trying now on my tree here that I stamped, and I wanted it stamped very lightly. I didn't want it too dark, so I used an old ink pad because I knew I wanted to come in with colours on the leaves, etc. So in the spring I've tried to just define those early green leaves. Moving on to summer, I still have the green leaves, but you'll see in a moment how I define both a little bit more. So just taking my time to mark those in. As I've always said throughout the creation of my positivity deck, I enjoy each and every stroke. It's art with intention. I'm setting out with the intention to enjoy this. And here I am on autumn, putting in those bright orange leaves. So there was a slight gap there because the phone rang. But this week I did manage to hit the on-off button at the right time, and I didn't drop my camera this week, which was a big bonus. So now I'm looking at the ground and putting down some leaves on the ground, just to show that they are coming down and off the tree. And I'm now going to go back to spring, and I'm just marking what I see as the blossom on the trees, the spring blossom, cherry blossom. And in a moment or two I'll put some dots up and into the air just to reflect the kind of blossom being blown in the wind. And in the summer I'm drawing the actual cherries that come on the tree. And I put some of those on the ground to show that they fall. Likewise, it could be apples. It could have been apple blossom above. So for me, this is just my representation. I'm sure many of you will come up with something quite different, and I look forward to seeing what you do create. So there I am, just showing the leaves that are dropping off the tree. Now for winter, I'm mindful that there may still be some leaves on the tree. They've tended to go even darker, shriveled up more. Some still cling on, but there's still more of the bare branches. And here I'm just using my white pen to show the snow, and showing the snow gathering on the tree. So all in all, really quite a simple representation. So I'm just taking a darker pen here, just marking in a bit of the tree trunk and the branches. As I say, I very much wanted this to be a light stamp because of the other things that I'd wanted to do on it. And just slightly off camera there, I'm just using the green to mark in some strands of grass. And just putting a few other leaves down in the pile of leaves on the ground. Just turning some of them a more gold colour. And the watercolour paint that I used, I don't know if I said already, but it's got a kind of pearlised effect. So when the light hits it, it gives a slightly different effect to it. And just showing a little bit of snow down the side of the tree there. So I'm now going to take these colour pencils, and all I'm going to do is to take 4 colours that kind of match the background that I've created there, and I'm just going to use those to create a very simple border. For me, a border often finishes off a card. It's not to say it always needs it, but for me it helps just kind of draw the eye into the card. In each case I use it just so that it shows up a little bit more against the kind of base colour. Doesn't need to be too much, still fairly subtle, but just adds a little something to it. And again, just blending over the kind of line there between spring and summer. Just deciding which colour to use here. And I end up going for the orange rather than that kind of slightly more yellow colour. And then it's just a case of putting my word on and have a think about how I want to do it, and in the end I just take a plain black pen and just write seasons onto it. Now this week I actually journalled before I sat down and did my card. I'm swapping it about now. Sometimes I journal after I've created my card, and sometimes now I will journal beforehand. And sometimes I'll go back to it later and add a bit more if there's something else that I think about. And I do like the way that the light seems to change how it looks. It's sometimes darker looking and sometimes lighter with a bit of a shimmer. So I hope you've enjoyed this week's video. As always, I thank you very much for watching, and I hope you'll join me again next week. Meantime, bye for now.